Welcome, everybody. Is that really? Welcome to the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting, October 15th at 2013. John, can you serve as our Secretary Pro Tem, please? Can you please take a roll call? Present. So we have 5 present. We have a quorum, so we call to order. First thing I want to do is offer anybody who would like to address the board. Before we get started, you can stand anywhere you like. Say anything you want to. Just ask that you state your name and your address for the record. So if anybody would like to address the board before, please do so. And we'll also offer a formal time to address the board after, in case you see something you want to talk about later. And we're going to try to keep it sort of informal, so if you have questions during this presentation, we can address that as well. Does anybody want to say anything now? Okay. With that being said, we're going to get into our strategic planning presentations, and I want to thank everybody who's here and anybody who eventually sees this on tape and hears about this for all of your guys' effort and work you put into this. We realize there was a lot of hours and a big commitment in the summer, and we do really appreciate all your help and all the work you've done to get this to where it is today. So thank you so much. And first, we're going to begin with Board Goal 1, which is led by...
No, we're gonna start with strategic plan first. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming this evening. This is the culmination of a lot of work that started last year in September when we hired ECRA to be our strategic planning facilitator. And our strategic plan is on our website, so if you can see a picture. Want to scroll a little bit? I just want to remind everybody where we came from and where we're going. Just a reminder, they did the background of the district. You can just kind of scroll slowly, keep going. This part we're going to start with. Phase 1 was conducting the research. So there was a lot of research that was done last fall. They looked at all of our historical documents, our test scores, our financials. They did focus groups, surveys. They did all kinds of research in the community. Phase 2 is where they actually put all that research together and came up with what we call our template for a strategic plan, and the board went through and made sure that it really represented what the community had stated in all the different research sections here. And today we're finally at phase 3. Go up just a little bit. Jill is helping me back in this corner until we get to the presentations today. So if we could just scroll a little bit. Skip that one. Skip that one. Okay, I want to stop with this one. This really shows all of the different things that ECRA worked on with us. It shows that they had interviews and focus groups with board members, administrators, faculty, staff, parents, community members, and students. So they really were able to talk to quite a few people. If you keep scrolling down on that way, there was a survey that they administered. ECRA did several reports. And then they gave us the research findings. And that's where we'll stop right now, Jill. Nate, if you could get us into PowerPoint number 1. I just want to state that on August 7th of this year, approximately 40 members of our Lake Bluff Elementary School District 65 learning community gathered and worked all day to provide input on each of our four goals set through phases 1 and 2 of strategic planning, as well as discussing and engaging in conversations around the objectives that were set. You need to know that over 80 people came. So on a full day of work, August 7th, we had over 40 people helping us with this, which was very exciting. It was invigorating, and it was much appreciated by both our board and our administration. Between August 7th and now, the administrative team has met on these goals and metrics to make it meaningful to us. And that is very important. A final spreadsheet, and I put that in quotes, was developed for us to review. That was made available back in the back. And that will be our working document. We can sort that spreadsheet by dates that it's due. And then we're actually, for administrators, going to add another column that's more specific to us and will help us keep us accountable for our goals. Last week, our administrative team, in determining the presentation form, just decided that the spreadsheet, besides being very small to read, was difficult for us to follow. And so we decided to make them into PowerPoints, which means slides that are easier to read and then easier for everybody to understand. So I do need to share one very important item. And I know it was very much a part of the last strategic plan done here for quite a while. This strategic plan is going to be a living document. And what that means is regular reports to the board and to the community will take place on progress toward meeting these goals. And one of the things the administrators will do is take all of the reports and data that we need to gather and put it in our board planning calendar so that the board knows when we'll be reporting out on different items. The community will also know that. So we could either do kind of our state of the state in January, the same time the president does his or hers. And then usually there's an end of the year report. And throughout the year, there'll be reports also. Please note that while we're doing this, the boards may be asking questions and possibly making suggestions for change. They will vote on the actual adoption of this plan and reports later on, as soon as this is to everybody's liking, and then it's adopted, and we're actually scheduling our first reports in January on this plan. We want to thank our goal team members that are here. I received a lot of emails from goal team members saying they would not be able to make it this evening, but they really are interested in following us, and all of our goal team members will be meeting again in June to catch up on what the data looks like, what we've gathered, and really keep life into this strategic plan, which is so important. It is very important that the education of our Lake Bluff 65 students remains a priority at all times, and the safety and well-being of our students and staff, as well as running a fiscally responsible school district, is our priority. And you're going to see that as we go through each of our plans. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Rubenstein and Board Goal 1. Now, what you guys may want to do, because you're kind of settled before the board, you might want to pull your chairs up over here so that the board can ask you questions, or if you're comfortable sitting back there, that's fine, because the board can also turn around to ask you questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. Please feel free to share anything as presentations occur. And what we're going to try to do, we practiced today, is get through the presentation and then the board can ask questions. So if you can just jot your questions down as we go, then we'll go back.
Great, thank you. I first wanted to start out by introducing the members of Goal Team 1 who are here tonight. So we have Mrs. Elzamora and Mrs. Sharman and Ms. Rorik from the elementary school, and also Ms. Bay from the elementary school. And so we're excited to have lots of our Goal Team 1 members here tonight. Theoretically, I have. So, the arrow goes up. So, what we're really focusing on is our vision. Excellence in education, enthusiasm for life with every student every day. And that's something that we have been actively talking about with each of our staff members. So we were just chatting over here at our table that when you look at strategic plans in the area and all over, the number one goal is always to improve student learning. And ours is very similar, that we would like to maximize the academic achievement and personal growth of each student by supporting high academic standards and differentiated instruction. Students can and will succeed. So that underlying premise is there at the bottom. Dr. Sophie talked a little bit about the fact that there's a lot of information to go through. There are actually 39 slides, and so I'm not going to read every single one. I'm going to summarize some of the big tactics that we talked about as a team to put into place here. So, Goal 1A, monitor, assess, and improve individual student growth to hold students to their highest academic standards. And so you'll see that some of this still needs to be fleshed out because some of the things that we're going to be doing here are completing an assessment audit. We've already begun that. Moving more students from the meets to exceeds column on state assessments, and that's going to be further defined when we move to the PARCC assessment in 2015. Implement recommendations from the gifted audit. Many of you know that we partnered with Northwestern University Center for Talent Development to study our gifted and enrichment programs in the district, and so some of the recommendations that they offer to us at our meetings with them late in January will be implemented. Students, one of the areas here is really focusing on the individual student and making sure that students at grades 3 through 8 are setting individual learning goals. Completing that gifted audit is a part of that. I already talked about it. Complete intervention plans for students not meeting or exceeding locally established academic standards. We held for the first time today our response to intervention core team meeting to talk about RTI in the district and what that looks like, and how we can complete intervention plans for each of the students in the district who do not meet standards. We've talked as a district about what meaningful data needs to be shared with Lake Forest High School and what that looks like. So for instance, we know that they ask us for our mapped data every single school year. And so is there some data that Lake Forest High School collects on our former students that we should be having access to so that we can better understand our student outcomes? Use the state growth model to develop a local growth model. This is another thing that we're going to be working with ECRA on. ECRA has been really fantastic about helping us to understand what typical and average student growth is in the district, and we're developing a much better understanding of that. One thing, you'll see the little star here at the bottom, is that the local growth model, as it pertains to teacher evaluation, has to be negotiated with the joint committee on evaluation, which will be put into place in the 15-16 school year. Goal 1B, equip students with 21st century learning skills. So we want to talk with all of our teachers about what 21st century learning looks like and help them to understand a little bit more about how to implement that. Coordinate staff development with Lake Forest school districts, both 67 and 115. Some of that is already going on. We share a lot of the same consultants and coaches, but looking to do more of that. And some of the execution metrics are up there. Delivering the Common Core curriculum, and it's not that we're not doing this now, but we will certainly be focusing on that as time goes on. Refine and continue the district's emphasis on student social and emotional development. Continue to administer the Illinois Youth Survey, and so we have for many years been talking and administering the survey to our 6th and 8th grade students on drug and alcohol use, and then also some other local measures that we collect data on. And so looking at that, but then also identifying and implementing a survey to measure student social and emotional growth at the elementary school. We know that we do it at the middle school, and so we have to look at that for the elementary school. Second step, which is curricular program that we've adopted in the area of social and emotional learning, has a middle school survey that looks at whether students feel that they have an adult in the building that they feel safe talking to. It identifies a number of sort of precursors to negative behaviors, but then also about how students are learning the curriculum. And so looking at implementing that. Evaluate our present social and emotional programs, so looking at that at the PAWS program at the elementary building, at the Bluffer Buddies here at the middle school, and making sure that students are that it's meeting our needs. Continue social and emotional programs, and that is some of our work with the Charms Foundation and with the other social and emotional learning wellness programs that we have going on here in the district. Offer and encourage a broad range of educational experiences, so we really have to determine what data we're going to collect, what that's going to look like, to determine some of our program needs. And that sort of says the same thing up there, but we are really looking here at making sure that as we move forward and look at English and language arts, that program is meeting the needs of all of our students in the district, that our curricular programs are meeting everybody's needs, that when we talk about music and music appreciation, that's really helping our students to appreciate music more, and that we're having good outcomes in that area. Review off-campus and field trip experiences. This is something that we've already started to do. We have created a new procedure in the district to evaluate school field trips and off-campus experiences, and so that's something that we will continuously look at. And then there was a nice discussion on August 7th when we got together about what data is communicated to parents and how it's communicated to parents. So we talked about creating brochures and or pamphlets or information on the website about each of the curricular areas, but then also about the assessments that we do with our students, and there are a number of assessments. So helping our parents and families to better understand what a MAP test measures, helping them to understand better what the PARCC assessment will look like and what an ISAT score really means, communicating that in a much more clear manner. Complete a review of report cards for students, and so you'll see on here that this is June of 2015. Several districts in the area have begun to look at how they report on student achievement, and so that's something that we will also take a look at, because we know that we want to be transparent and help parents and families to understand exactly what it is that their students are learning and where they are meeting the standards, where they're exceeding the standards, and where they might need a little bit of work. And so that'll be a part of the report card review process. Align the curriculum and instruction vertically and horizontally in accordance with the Common Core. And so conduct online surveys of teachers' needs in the area of Common Core curriculum. We've started to do this with our professional development survey, which Mr. Blackmer will report out on in just a second. We want to move more students from the meets to exceeds on state assessments. Adhere to the established curricular review cycle. That's something that Joanne Trahanis and I have been working on quite a bit, and so really making sure that curriculum is reviewed in a timely manner and an ongoing basis. And then develop and document clear guides for teaching within the curriculum and publish those district-wide. So making sure that we have teaching guides for all of our teachers in the area, especially in the areas of reading and language arts, but also math, science, and social studies. So what it is that our teachers are going to teach, not how they will teach it, but some possibilities of projects and examples of how we're going to measure that. We'll review the Common Core standards and performance between grade levels 3 times per year at a faculty meeting. And so we'll talk a little bit about how we are meeting the needs of our students through the Common Core, what that looks like, how we know that they're meeting those different benchmarks throughout the year. We'll talk about that at faculty meetings. And then the last part here is to schedule transition meetings between principals and superintendents of feeder districts with the high school. Mr. Blackmer talks with 8th and 9th grade students to evaluate their transitional experiences, and so we'll continue to do that. Expand current practice of receiving 9th grade end of the year scores to include reading and math to assess achievement. And so that's a little bit more about some of the data that we want to collect. I know that I just sprinted through that, and I think that I did it in the allotted time frame. So I will, unless there are questions right now from the board. Yes. very much so. What Mr. Rosen asked is if one team member from the district will be assigned to each of the goal areas or to each of the individual execution metrics to make sure that it's accomplished from start to finish. And the answer to that is yes. What is not on this screen up here and what is on the individual spreadsheets are individual names of people or small groups of people like the RTI core team and that sort of thing who are going to be evaluating that. So very much so, this is a part of our day-to-day work.
John, I was just going to expand on that and say, not only are we going to have a person or a group, but we're going to take it a step further and say, how often are we going to be putting together a report on that? And then how often are we going to share that data? So that's what we're going to call our little administrative column that we're going to be adding to make it meaningful to us and accountable for you.
Here's my question. I knew that, for example, Kevin, you are accountable for a number of the goals, but obviously you can't be accountable for all of them with respect to expense. So my real question is, how is it going to drill down and will the individuals under you be held directly?
So on a day-to-day basis, we meet with a variety of stakeholders. We meet with teachers. We meet with a lot of our staff members to talk about how we implement this goal. And so, for example, I'll go back to what we talked about earlier with understanding our response to intervention programs and making sure that those programs are working. So I will take that specific portion of the work goal of the strategic plan back to our RTI core team, and we will talk about how we're going to implement it and measure it and what that's going to look like and what we can report out on at various different points during the year. So this is constantly a living and breathing document. I would anticipate that in a 5-year strategic plan that we will start with a variety of these. We will implement everything and we'll meet our goals and probably have to adjust our metrics and framework as time goes on. Because education changes every single day these days, and so it's really important that we keep up and even move ahead of the curve.
The other thing that I'd share is one of the things that research is saying is that building the capacity of teachers is essential in a school environment. And so you will hear, like, for instance, Ward Goal 2, they'll be talking about Rising Star. So our teachers are really leaders and are getting data and things together too. So you're going to be hearing a lot more about our teachers being leaders in those areas.
The only other thing I use, this is not something that is easy to define, but I think it's important to quantify and have as measurable as much as you can. And sometimes it's impossible to attach numbers and so much stuff. And I don't necessarily know. When you say move more students, I prefer to see that some quantified number at some point that you think is reasonable.
Why don't you share our conversation?
You and me both. We are in the same. You're in the same mindset as the rest of us, and so what we will be doing after this evening is sitting down and looking at the baseline data that we have about the number of students that are meeting and the number of students that are exceeding, and then attempting to quantify and talk about what is both realistic and understandable that we could do over the course of 1 year, over the course of 2 years. And so you will be seeing additional metrics on there about what the, we were sort of debating about the wording, but about what the outcome would be if that goal were to be accomplished successfully.
I think the other piece of that, we're all on the same page with that. But as we shared in Superintendent Corner this morning, as we had our first one, all of the testing is changing. So it's hard for us to, the only thing that we can really set a goal on right now is the exceeding, because we can say increase it by 3 students or 5%, but all of our other testing is all changing. And so we really, that's why in many of the cases when we say see where the benchline assessments are, we have to wait and see what the new PARCC test is measuring. We're really learning to use MAP in a better way. So we're in agreement, and the board's going to see some more direct feedback on it. So.
Well, I made a similar comment looking at a lot of we've been doing that, so is there something we could choose from that? If it's worth measuring, is there something we could choose as a goal now to say, where we're going to do anything with it, or do anything better?
Yes, and there are various different points within that survey that we look at specifically. So I just pointed out one of them, for example, that we want to make sure that every student, 100% of the students at the middle school report that they have an adult that they feel safe going to in case of an emergency. And so we will definitely be looking at that as a portion of our next steps as an administrative team to attempt to quantify this a little bit more using some of the data that we have now, but then also after gathering some of our baseline data. So Mr. Blackmer is going to talk in just a second about the professional development survey that we're doing. We embedded several questions in the professional development survey this year. Things like professional development has met my needs as a teacher in this district. That's just one example. And so we would expect that as teachers get more involved in their own professional development, that every year when we administer that survey, that number would improve. We certainly understand where you're coming from. We would like this to be as measurable as possible. And so we'll do that in the next step by sort of adding some additional metrics.
I think the other thing that I would share is that as we develop our baseline reports to the board, for instance, I'll use the youth survey. If we have our initial, we may report out to you and say 80% of our kids have an adult that they can talk to in the middle school that they're comfortable with. So from that first initial report, the board can say, gee, I'd like that to go up to 90% for next year. So we need some of the baseline assessment data. I think the other thing, and Nate, I'll take this from Kevin's presentation because it fits perfectly here. Both in the testing and now also in the survey, this 5 Essentials survey that we pumped out, that everybody took last year. We're going to get all this data. The state has now decided that it was normed improperly. The data is really not useful. In Springfield, there was a lot of anger and frustration with superintendents last week. And so we asked the question, then why are we even publishing it? We're publishing the data because there is a law that says when they pass teacher evaluation, they were going to pass all these other things. And part of it is publishing data from this 5 Essentials. So we've got a survey that's already been deemed not valid and reliable, that we will be publishing data on the district. We will see it on October 31st, but we still have to publish it because the law says it. So I guess what I would do is get back to your question and say, after we start doing some of the reports and you see where natural percentages fall, that would be a good point for us to set goals in some of the areas. A lot of it is just developing the plan and bringing it back. But all of us want measurable goals to be setting. We may have collected the data in the past, but we haven't made the presentations to get even any kind of ideas from all of you on where we would set goals and what we would want to set goals on. Does that make sense? A little bit.
Also related to data.
Okay.
From a selection perspective, I wonder if there was value to or consideration given to having conversations with high school and 67 about data they collect or the data they're considering. Because I've heard that they're considering there's an alternative out there to our, I can't quote what it is, but at least where it is. And I just wonder if it might be of value to sit down and engage in a conversation about not only learning, but data to collect, but how can we work together to collect data that is useful in high school.
There's a lot of that's in board goal too.
Right. Yeah, a lot of that is reported in board goal 2 and in goal 4. To talk a little bit about the first part of your question, though, there is a bit of a misconception that might be out there. The PARCC assessment, which will be administered beginning in 2015, is a state-mandated assessment. It is aligned to the Common Core standards, which Illinois and 46 other states have been a part of the adoption of. And Once the state adopted the Common Core standards, then it had the opportunity to join one of two different assessment consortiums. One of them is the PARC Consortium, Partnership for Academic Readiness for College and Career, and the other one is the Smarter Balanced Consortium. Smarter Balanced Consortium is a group of probably 25 other states who were part of the PARC Consortium. There's been no information or no indicator that we would move out of the PARC Consortium or that we would join Smarter Balanced, given by the State Board of Education, by anybody. We're one of the PARC governing board states, and so there would be no indication that we would not get that assessment beginning of 2015. It's not our decision to make.
If we want to be compliant and get any kind of funding at all.
Right. Any other questions?
I do think based on the suggestions though, the one on exceeding, we could definitely define having a little bit more as far as a percentage we can take where we are now. But it is universally accepted that we need to move more of our kids from needs to exceeds, and our kids in boarding and needs improvement, we need to get them to needs. So we can set that and say 5%. We have to look at how many kids that would impact. But the majority of things are just getting data in a reporting form for you. That's where we're trying to get at this point.
My concern with it is that we start doing a lot of measurement, but we're saying that all of the measurement tools are going to change in a couple of years. So we will measure for,
For nothing.
cases for nothing.
That's
And
my
I'd like,
concern too.
I understand there's a need to do some baseline measurement and get started, but I'd also like to see us doing something that, you could really say, okay, actually. Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I think the only comment I would say is, as you go through this plan, we're working on a lot. And to go through either developing another test or doing something that would be consistent through the 5 years of the plan would take even more time. And your concern is our concern. Everything's changing.
Well, and I'm not suggesting for every one of these that you would do that, but, your example of the question about moving kids from needs to exceed.
We could do one for that one.
That might be a place where you could say, if we know this data well enough, that we could do something with it right now. And what you do, what you're accomplishing, I don't know, that's what
We all agree that we would be comfortable setting a number in that area, knowing that it's going to change in 2 years. So we could collect it for a year or two. So that we can easily do when we bring that. Yeah, so it's not apples to apples, All right. Which is why, one of the reasons why it was hard for us to determine what number we would put, because one test is 20% aligned to Common Core, and the next test is going to be 100% aligned to Common Core. But we have to have high standards, and so none of us are objecting at all to setting a number, but it'll be a number of best guess, and that's not. It makes all of us a little bit uncomfortable, but we can come up with something.
at least we're working on it.
Is there a way to use math testing as a surrogate for some of those questions? That's something we've always done with a while.
Well, Matt, we'd have to change the whole tactic then, because we would be looking at growth rather than needs and exceeds. They're two different kind of tactics. But we'll bring that back and we'll talk about it.
Hello.
Nate, before you start.
Yeah.
Did anything from Board Goal 1 team? I want to thank all of you for coming.
I agree. Like all the questions we have.
We will have numbers, the student growth models that Echo is
So I'll be representing the committee that worked on goal area 2. And I think that you'll probably see there's some overlap between some of what we've discussed already in goal 1 and 2. And hopefully when we get into the tactics, you'll start to see where the approach of goal 2 is a little bit different. And I think it's helpful to keep in mind as I go through this that we're really focusing in goal 2 on teaching, specifically teaching and learning. Strategic goal 2, optimize the teaching and learning environment through a robust, challenging curriculum and high-quality teachers, instruction, and facilities. The district can best support the student achievement and development. When it comes to tactics, I always remind myself what is a tactic, and it helps me to kind of stay centered as I go through things. The tactics are those processes and those activities that we're undergoing to meet our goals. And I think one of the things that was exciting for our group was to see that a lot of these tactics are already underway. I think that was a really key part of our discussions as we developed these tactics. The 2A goal is to make use of assessment data to improve the quality of instruction. I want to make it clear that we're doing this. It's not an epiphany as part of this process that we need to be doing that. We have been, but we do want to talk more about it. Improve the use of assessment data to inform instruction. That's one of those, I know Kevin mentioned already the assessment audit that's going to be done. That's a big part of helping us to determine what our execution metrics is going to be for this. So that's going to be helpful, and we hope to have the results of that very soon. Rising Star. For those of you that aren't familiar with what Rising Star is, essentially it is a school improvement plan, and we already have school improvement teams, Rising Star teams, in place at both of our buildings. Those teams are going through specific indicators in each of our buildings, and the teams are really taking a look at those indicators and making a determination as to whether we've begun the process of implementing those indicators, whether we're partially or completely through that process, and also identifying for each indicator its priority. All part of the school improvement plan that we're talking about here. Train teachers on how to analyze and communicate the assessment data. The goal, of course, is to have all of our teachers trained in that area. I think a good example would be when we talk about something like MAP testing. How are we looking at those results? What are we using those results for? I can tell you that we're using those results to make determination about enrichment and how to extend on curriculum based on our results on MAP. We're also using those to help us identify kids who are in need of support with those MAP scores. We're looking at student growth over time. But how exactly teachers interpret all of that information for the kids they currently have, that's part of what we know is important, and it needs to be ongoing training. Recruit, retain, and recognize the faculty and personnel. That's one of those areas. Pardon me as I flip my paper here. I'm a little trigger happy. I went past my slide. I guess I was done with my slide. Anyway, here we go. One of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing for our staff, if we do have folks who are moving on, is an exit interview of some kind, some sort of survey that helps us understand if they are moving on to another position, why is that? What were their feelings about their time here in the district? Dr. Sophie already mentioned the 5 Essentials survey. Obviously, that's a bit of a challenge for us at the moment, knowing that the state is going to be changing that a little bit, or at least changing the way that they're reporting out that information. But nonetheless, it's information that's going to be reported publicly on the interactive school report cards, and it's certainly helpful for us, and it touches upon not only teaching and learning, but also climate within a building, and I think that's a big contributing factor to that retention and recruitment piece, which we're going to continue to talk about here. Develop a recognition committee to identify ways of recognizing staff and their accomplishments. That committee's already been formed, and I believe has met already, and has another meeting on the calendar. So that's exciting. We're talking about how we're going to go about recognizing all of those teachers who are doing great things every year. Also very important, how do we go about recruiting our teachers? Obviously the goal here is to bring in the very best teachers and keep them here. Looking at not only how we advertise when we do have openings, looking also at the number of applicants for positions when they're posted, and certainly asking the question, what brings you to Lake Bluff? What drew you to want to be a teacher here in our district? Improved staff development offerings. 2C. Having a difficult time manipulating the mouse and my notes. Okay. We've already administered the professional development survey. Kevin has put that together, and many of our teachers have already responded to it. And the results of that are going to be coming soon. So we're excited that that's something that's already taken place. Sorry.
Can you give an example on that one?
Yes, absolutely. One of those areas that teachers have already identified is the desire to have more training in the area of English language learner instruction. We have a higher percentage of kids coming in as second language speakers of the English language, and it's really important that we're meeting their needs. And so that was a fairly universal response that we got in that survey, and something that we've already begun to talk about and identify as something that we can do a better job of. One of the other things that we have here in our district, which is, I think, very important and something that we can utilize, is the in-house experts that we have. We have a number of teachers who are on the cutting edge of things in their classroom and have a lot to deliver to the other staff, both to the rest of the staff, whether it be in one building or across the district. And so finding a way to identify those in-house experts and give them the opportunity to share the information that they have learned and implemented in their classroom. And that, I think, goes hand in hand with those who've gone off and learned something new at a workshop or an in-service of some kind, coming back to share out what they've learned. And that can be at faculty meetings, that can be at team meetings. But that's very, very important to us that we're tapping into those in-house experts that we have. Align professional development with a plan that meets the needs of the district and the school improvement plan. That's something that we have been in the process of. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Dr. Sophie, help me. Was there something specifically that we wanted to make sure to mention in this area?
In this particular?
Yeah.
No, I just think it's important for everybody to know that the superintendent in Lake Forest Schools is a superintendent of 2 districts and plans for 2 different board meetings. He also has a strong belief that our 3 districts should be working very closely together. They have a lot of administrators in their districts, so it took me and Mike about 3 months to get a date on our calendar just to have breakfast with all our administrative teams, which will take place in 2 weeks.
There we go. I found my note on that. 2
Probably-
weeks.
Probably one of the biggest things that we can start doing is coordinating our calendars, because if we shared some institute days and shared some of our training, that's a great start. And then we really need to be breaking up into language arts meeting a couple times a year, math meeting a couple times a year, history meeting, and really start having the professional conversations. What are you doing in this area? What are you looking for in this area? I want to assure you that some of the best meetings I went to in Lake Forest, we did that with math last year. And I was very encouraged on how the Lake Bluff kids are doing. There is no reason why our 3 districts can't be working together and making sure that our kids are not only fully ready for their transition to the high school, we graduate the top kids, and then Lake Forest graduates the top kids in the state. So that is our goal, and it is our goal to try to coordinate their 20 administrators and our 6 or 7 administrators. So you're going to start seeing a lot more meetings with that. I'm really feeling some momentum.
Gene, I've listened to that, and I've had meetings with presidents of 67 and 450 as well, and they're all on the same page.
Did you guys all hear that?
I've had coffee several times with the presidents of districts 1 to 15 high school, top and 67, Bill Anderson, and they're all aligned to this as well. Like they want to see three districts on the same meeting, together as part of the we talk about that sometimes.
One of our in-house experts just helped me out. Thank you, Ann. How simple a solution for my problem. I appreciate it. Moving on here to goal 2D. Create equitable accountability systems district-wide that drive higher student achievement and improve educational outcomes for all students. This joint committee has already been formed. One of the jobs of our joint committee is to work together to figure out how we're going to tie student growth into teacher evaluation, and that process is underway, and we have timelines given to us by the state to do that. We will be meeting again prior to the deadline of including student growth into the teacher evaluation process. Principal Administrative Accountability System completed. That has been part of the principal evaluation. The student growth piece has been part of the principal evaluation for some time now, and ECRA will be working with us to improve upon that. Goal 2E, systematic integration of technology in the classroom. Align technology integration with the Common Core standards. We have a 3-year cycle for our evaluation plan that's going to be submitted to the state. And our next year for doing that is the 2014-2015 year. So much of this is going to align to that technology plan submission to the state. Audit current technology resources and assess sufficiency. Again, these are things that are ongoing and continuous, but will also be aligned with that 3-year plan that's going to be submitted in the 14-15 school year. Identify assessment of student technology usage. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is having to kind of take the pulse of all of our students and determine how their technology skills compare to others, and make sure that we're addressing those. 21st century learning standards are one of those documents that we're going to be closely relying on to help guide our way as we go through the technology assessment piece. Now, a lot of
the outcome will be an actual assessment.
Right.
Grades K through 8.
Right. Just in case you didn't hear that, there will be an assessment that all kids K through 8 are going to be taking to measure their technology skills. There's a lot of assessment that's done in this area. One of our goals is to make that more of a formal assessment as opposed to just some of the informal that's been done before. So this is what we're talking about here: improve skills in the use of technology, and that's where that assessment piece is going to help us. Create integrated checklist for each subject area. So as we take a look at those Common Core standards and how all of those standards are being met within the classrooms, we also want to identify those standards that are being met through the use of technology in the classroom, which is what we were talking about there. Training and professional development for teachers. Back to making sure that our teachers are equipped to implement the technology effectively where it's appropriate in the classrooms. 2F, create emotionally and physically safe, healthy, sustainable, and high-quality learning spaces. You were presented just last week with the education adequacy. that's right. BLDD helped us with an education adequacy survey and presented their findings last week to the board. And so this is certainly something that works toward as a tactic toward our goal here of developing a facilities committee to provide input to the master facilities plan. Also, we will maintain the district-wide emotional wellness initiative for teachers. Both buildings, elementary and middle, have a wellness committee. That wellness committee is in full swing in both of those buildings. Nate Eklund is the coach that we have here in the middle school, who's helping guide our work in the emotional wellness area. We have worked very hard over the past several years to help remind the staff, remind the students, and remind parents sort of that umbrella that is emotional wellness. It's the plate under which everything else sort of sits. As long as we've got kids who are in a good state emotionally, they're in a good state to also be learning here at school. And so that's sort of the approach that we've been taking. Nate Eklund helps us with that all the way along. And then, of course, maintain current district-wide safety procedures in all buildings. Obviously, we have our drills, our lockdown drills, our fire drills, our severe weather drills, our evacuation procedures and plans. All of those things are continuing and will continue. And in fact, we had our annual life safety inspection this afternoon or this morning. The regional office does their inspection, and those were all things we were able to produce for them and met all of our requirements. Susan, yeah.
So what strikes me is the most significant change that we might make for this particular goal is relegated to one tack, I think, and maybe it's elsewhere. But the facilities plan, and maybe it's in the next one, the facilities plan to facilities committee to provide a input into the facilities plan seems to me directly relevant to optimizing the teaching and learning environment. And I wonder if this is one of those areas of overlap with another organization, or goal 3? Okay.
Yeah. Jane's going to be talking a lot more about that in her area here. Yeah.
I think it's fantastic that the technology, the word technology is sounded out for 13 years. From my experience, work up in the Maltese, is I notice that the kids sometimes are far ahead of the teachers on technology. I assume that in the statements of technology and training, you're talking about teachers and students.
Yes. Yeah. And you're right. Very often there's an opportunity where the teachers are learning a lot from their students as they come in. Some of those ideas and some of those things that they already have access to that we didn't already know about in terms of presenting information, synthesizing their information, collaborating with one another. I would say that we're getting to a point in our one-to-one program where that happens less and less often, but it still happens. And certainly we want to be the drivers of that technology, both in terms of the teacher, making sure that we're instructing the way that we want to, and that they're employing that technology the way that we want them to. But yeah, to answer your question, it's certainly training for both teachers and students.
I think, and I'm going to add on that just so for the board and for the audience here, the technology plan that our district currently has is listed on a site called the IIRC, Illinois Interactive Report Card. You're going to want to log into that by Halloween because that's when all the scores across the state are coming out. It's hosted by the award-winning football team, Northern Illinois University Huskies. But I do need to share with you that technology plan is an in-depth plan for technology for our school district. And all of you as board members will be receiving a packet on things to do when you get on IIRC. Parents, lots of information on that. So I would strongly advise that you all log in and look at the technology plan. Our next technology plan, which I'm assuming Lori worked on last time, I've always been on committees where we have parents, we have staff, we have board members, and we really look at things like, are we going to keep our laptops or move to iPads? Are we going to How are we going to test the kids? What are we using it for? So in the interim, we have this plan, but we really need to start looking at the development of some of the assessments prior to that plan being developed. So that's a good place to start. IIRC. If you Google it, it comes up right away.
I got a question about technology also. I think Board Goal 1 referred to 21st century classroom, and I didn't see anything in this reference to technology in the classroom or Board Goal 2, making sure we're aligned to whatever we're calling the 21st century classroom. I also want to mention that I remember being on a committee a few years ago where we did a lot of discussion on 21st century learning. And one takeaway I got from all that was there was not a real clear-cut definition of what that was. It was a little flexible. I'm wondering if that thought to be aligning, what do we call 21st century learning? And how are we going to align our technological movements to that?
Yeah, hopefully we didn't gloss over it. I would imagine that a lot of that is going to be coming from that committee work that we mentioned in terms of making recommendations about the facility going forward and what the 21st century classroom looks like, how it's going to be equipped. But that is a very important part of the learning environment and one that needs to be assessed. And I think a part of that came from our board presentation last week, but also will be included in the Goal 3 area that Jane's going to be talking about. Yeah.
And just to let you know, there are something called the NET standards. Oh, sorry. There are also the NET standards, which are nationally recognized as the technology standards. And you'll also find in the Common Core, many of those standards are embedded in the Common Core. So there are explicit things where they say they have to be able to use digital and be able to technologies. They have to be able to interpret and analyze digital technology. So, but the NET standards are kind of the common, and there are set standards that you start to follow. So that's what we're using.
And the interesting thing as you look at those is that it's not specific necessarily to a device, to a laptop, to an iPad. So that's sort of up to us to make a decision on what is the best way to meet those standards. So I've had to change my thinking on that a little bit because so often we think of laptops when we think of technology. It's much more.
Well, we see if there's any more questions. You want to introduce your team real quick?
Joe, you want to ask a question?
It's hard to hear in this room, and it would be really helpful if the person with the microphone could state the topic of what that person asking the question has, because
You're not hearing the question. I apologize. Jane, we'll make sure to restate the question.
Am I loud enough?
You are, but I'll restate it anyway.
I know the high school is kind of getting on board with more technology, shall we say, and they are looking at initiatives for next year. Is there going, I'm assuming there will be plans to align some of our initiatives with some of theirs, some that are in the smooth transition part from over to high school?
So Kathy's comment was about the alignment of our technology implementation here in our district and continuing on in the District 115 over at the high school. They're looking more at implementing technology in their building. Okay, so specifically a one-to-one initiative. I would, yes, I believe the answer to that is absolutely that needs to be done. I would hope so. I mean, we've got, 8 years under our belt here. I think we've come a long way. I agree.
I have a question. I also have a couple of comments. My question is in the area of systematically integrated technology. And I see that we're focused on training people, and I'm curious though what we're doing at the front end. Do we already have specific policies that direct practices where we are systematically checking to see what technological skills people have before we hire them to teach? Or is that something that should be a part of this?
That's a great question. So Leanne's question was about, and you're talking about staff or future staff, people who would be applying to work here. Is there some manner in which we assess their competency with the use of technology? And the answer to that is right now, no. No, we don't.
I ask the interview questions in my office when they get to me. most of them have shown me something they've done, but that would be a good integration of something to do.
Pardon me, I guess I should clarify the no answer. There's always technology questions that are part of the interview process. Is that a formal assessment? Maybe not, but certainly most of what teachers will come to an interview with, and I'm speaking from my experience now, there's a real concerted effort there to present themselves and show what they can do and how they've implemented technology in the classroom. But in terms of an assessment of some kind, no, we don't have that in place.
It's a good idea for
Yeah.
And for it to be somewhat systematic, so that you have, certain things that are baseline, you just can't be here unless you manage.
More and more, we're getting folks who are applying with, an interactive DVD of some kind. And it's going to be showing videos of them teaching. It's going to be showing examples of student work. And you're going to get a lot of that just as younger new folks are coming in and applying. We're seeing more, they're just seeing a multimedia approach to presenting themselves. But right, it would be nice to know that have a bar at which we can compare everybody.
Well, because we can't require it
No.
unless we have it as part of the policy, so that's my observation with that. I just noticed with some of these that we have a tactic where we say we're going to do something like, for example, identifying experts. And that common sense, I can see how that would be of value, but there's no measurement of anything that does for us.
The measurement for that would be the ShareFair type item or the agenda where the staff members actually sharing their area of expertise. Can you hear me, Jill? I project. But it's where the expert would be sharing, and then it would be on one of those things where our staff is already answered through the staff development survey, that's an area where they want some more expertise. So it aligns with the survey results and then ultimately would show the student achievement.
I mean, it could just be our wording, and when we're doing the execution metrics, that something like that, we may need to say that, because here it just says identification of experts. That means we can make a list and call it a day. Yeah, like what's the...
So maybe it'd be helpful if I talked a little bit about how that tactic came to be, at least as we had discussed it. So often in the middle school, a nice example would be a teacher who goes to observe in another teacher's classroom. That's a piece of our contract that allows for an informal observation. A teacher can go and see something that's happening in a peer's room. And I always ask them to share up a little bit. What did you see? What did you learn? What did you like when you went to visit that teacher's classroom? Very often that's how we identify some of those experts within the building who maybe aren't ones to toot their own horn, but are doing something in their classroom that's unique and exciting, and other teachers hear about it and get energized by that and want to collaborate with that teacher and employ that technique or that tactic in their classroom. And so it kind of has that snowball effect of excitement where we're trying new things and seeing it being employed. Another example would be those teachers who, as we mentioned earlier, have gone off and learned something at a workshop, so excited about it, shared it at a faculty meeting. Some of that natural engagement between teachers is as powerful as any professional development that we might provide by bringing in an outside expert or someone who doesn't have the same knowledge of our resources within our classrooms, within our building, as our teachers who are already here doing it already do. So I think we're trying to capture that idea that we've had a lot of great success with folks who are on the ground making it work in their rooms versus always relying on somebody without side experience to come in and talk about something that maybe we already know how to do or is it tuned to our building and to our students.
I'm just suggesting that the execution metric for a lot of these, and I'm making an example of this one,
Right.
could be written so that it demonstrates whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Because otherwise, yep, I have my list, and here it's in file, but it may not have made any difference at all.
She's looking
But I
at that extra
understand-
column that we've been talking about.
Right. The outcomes column,
So I
right?
understand why
Yeah.
you want to do it. I think it's terrific. I think it's an excellent idea. I'm just talking about the wording of our execution metrics and how we know when we get back together a year from now whether we
Accomplish
did
the goal.
anything
Right.
for education.
I'm making the assumption, it gets back to my original question regarding accountability, that what we're seeing here is just the top side, and underneath of it, you're going to have a whole, maybe another 5 pages that describes this in a lot more detail. It defines the kind of things that always.
Right.
That's the
That's correct, yes. The comment was, there's, obviously, this is the overview, the 30,000 foot view of goal area 2. Yes, the flip notes, thank you. Okay.
Do you want to just see if your team wants to make a
Team,
comment?
is there anything else you'd like to add?
I was just going to say to that question that, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but whether they share out once a month, or if you have some metrics say the experts will share out with other people, this many times a year or something. I didn't know if that was kind of where you were going with it.
I mean, whatever difference having that list would make, did it happen? Were there staff meetings where they presented, or people where they observed, or I don't know how, I'm not a teacher, so I don't know how you would measure it, but that,
I think the idea was that we were talking about professional development, and if someone went out and got professional development, then they would come back and share it with the staff. So I think they could work business professionals where they're required to come, give some sort of presentation, maybe not just turn the classroom, but create a video presentation, and have that documents that were used for that. And just to, I want to say, it's so funny to sit here and look at this and put things back to the data and spend on this. I mean, even just looking at the last goal, great emotionally and physically safe, healthy, sustainable, and high quality learning spaces, we spent hours just achieving that one goal. So all of these things, maybe, like you said, it's maybe the 30,000 view, but there was so much depth and so much discussion of each one of these that it was constant.
Gilda, do you have any comments?
I just want to echo what Casey said. As far as just the sheer amount of different topics we had talked about and bring everyone at the table on the same page as far as what we're discussing and moving forward. So it was a lot of good work.
We did have an outstanding group of folks working together, and as we ran out of time at the end of the day, we all, I think, felt the same way, that there was so much more that we wanted to discuss. But we did bring it together, and I think I was really thrilled with everybody who was there to help develop these goals and tactics for us. So if there aren't any further questions, I'll turn things over to Jane and then get to the computer and pull up your goal 3.
I'm going to trump what Nate just said. I think Team 3 was a really outstanding group, and they worked really, really hard on August 7th. No. I'll start with Anne. If you want to introduce yourself. Then.
Ann Stewart.
Yeah. And see, we had Dave McElvain and Neil Dahlman, David Lane, Barbara Pegg, Terry Carney, yes. It was a good group, good day. Okay, we are on strategic goal 3. Ensure long-term fiscal stability and efficiency, budgetary discipline, and careful planning sustains high academic quality. Thank you. Prioritize the allocation of district resources in alignment with the strategic goals. So, goal 3A, tactic. Our team defined the priorities. First of all, safety and security, because you cannot achieve student achievement unless students and staff feel safe and secure. After that was debt resolution, space utilization for both schools, and then we kind of threw these other items into a bucket: staff development, emotional wellness, technology, community outreach, and communication. So the execution metric are resources allocated to ensure each priority is achieved. So we'll have to measure if we achieved that is yes or no. Goal 3B, establish board policy that sets minimum and maximum fund balances, including ways to bring us back into in that range. So the team decided a range of 25 to 60% based on expenditures, and it's important to make that definition. And then they provided mechanisms to reach that. Debt restructure, reduce or expand the levy, which we could still do with the 2013 levy, and identify specific purposes for spending. And what that refers to is if we're above the 60%, then there should be very specific and identified and communicated purposes as to why we're going above the 60% maximum. 3C, evaluate programs for effectiveness based on return on investment and intended outcomes. So for goal 3C, the tactic, all new programs of $25,000 or more need to be presented with defined outcomes and timelines prior to launch. And basically what that means is to start a new program, there needs to be some justification and identify goals or outcomes for that new program. So we can develop a form or a process. The $25,000 might mean we need to invest in additional staff or materials or consultants, but it's to prevent us from establishing a new program without any goals in mind. We don't want to just buy the latest new shiny object or the new hot topic of the day. We want to be thoughtful and methodical in establishing new programs. Develop a district facilities plan that addresses but is not limited to safety, space concerns, and land use. Okay. District administrators and teachers will benchmark a top-tier learning environment for potential application to the district. And this conversation came from some neighboring districts who I guess had added on to middle school, and I think middle school in Buffalo Grove, one of our members referenced. And this kind of goes back to also our educational adequacy report. So we're going to, and perhaps the facilities committee will be involved in this, I don't know. Excuse me. So parents, staff, and students will be surveyed again as an execution metric. Identify a long-term plan for the district office. Well, the district office lease expires in 2017, and we moved the district office to the location it's in when we raised East School, and it was meant to provide some period of time for the district to assess future needs and facilities and provide some time to make some long-term plans for permanent space. We have done a long-term facility study with BODD. It does just really reference the schools, but we do need to continue with the facilities committee and evaluate green space as well as buildings, not just bricks and mortar. Examine the current space allocations and deploy a realign based on latest curriculum program enrollment plans. This is an educational adequacy report, which Nate referred to earlier. This has been completed. It was presented to the board last week. And from that, the district's facilities committee, which Nate referenced in goal 2, can work on the priorities, which need to be determined based on the report and what the findings were in the educational adequacy report. 3D, utilize an outside consultant to identify potential security improvements beyond current practices and procedures. That's scheduled for October 16th at 8:30 in the morning. Our insurance liability cooperative is providing a consultant to come in, so we'll meet and we'll have this completed this year. Sorry. Establish metrics to monitor district financial health. And this is the recommendation from ECRA, I believe, in establishing a dashboard which can be shared with the community and give us some measurements on whether we're meeting or exceeding our goals. And it will include such items as listed here: the fund balance ratios, are we in our minimum, maximum, however the board adopts a policy, education fund spending, percent of salary benefits, operating expense per pupil, class size, additional benchmarks set by board and/or administration, and then enrollment demographics. Goal 3F, develop a long-term, comprehensive, and prioritized plan to spending. And basically that means we need to develop a 5-year master plan and update that, review it, I would say at least annually, and establish priorities with our spending. Questions? And I'm going to come over here and hand you the mic.
Jane, a thing that kind of weaves through here is our capital needs over the next 5 to 10 years. We listened to the BL, and we reviewed the BLLD report with respect to educational adequacy and also the building structure. How do you view a formal CapEx plan being put together, let's say going out 5 years, so that we don't have any surprises in the future and we can anticipate those particular needs?
Well, I think the report that BLDD provided outlines what are going to be urgent needs, what are needs that we can kind of push off if we need to. So I think we need to prioritize what we want to do. Not just with bricks and mortar, but also with how we use the space or how we want to improve any spaces. So I think that's where this facilities committee would be very, very useful. So we can methodically look at, okay, here's what we know is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. The boiler is going to go out. Okay, we can anticipate, we don't want to wait till it just breaks down. So if we think it's, it can last 10 years, if we make it to year 7 or 8, maybe that's the time we need to target, make sure we've got money in the bank to pay for that particular fix. Does that?
Yeah, it sounds to me like it's interwoven throughout a number of these.
It absolutely, it is interwoven with everything.
What I want to do is surprise not only for this board, but the next 20 years, let's say, so we anticipate out, based on that study, and other things we understand, what are our financial requirements?
I think in my opinion, it comes down to what are our priorities with everything. We've got to prioritize.
And I have one other question. What do you return on investment?
I don't like that term, return on investment. Not for a school district. So, and we've heard the term, get your bang for your buck. Well, we're a service. We educate kids, so it's not about bottom line like it is in corporate America making a profit. So, but I think it's important that, for example, the one-on-one laptop initiative. For years, we have struggled with how to tell the board that it is worth the investment to provide our children with those laptops. It's a hard thing to measure, but that's an example of are we getting good value for the taxpayer's dollar? Now, the educators say we are, but how can they define that? How do they measure that? And that's very, very difficult for them. But that's really, I think, we're getting a return on investment. But we don't want to just waste the money. Oh, look, here's a new device and a new nice shiny object. That'd be fun. But is it really useful? Is it going to get us to our curriculum goals? Is it going to meet Common Core standards? Is it going to help us achieve what we want to achieve with educating children and where we're going?
Follow up on John's question about facilities and capital expenditures, and I take it back to the facilities committee conversation we were having. Did you and your committee have conversations or have a recommendation for how the logistics of that will proceed moving forward? Any thoughts on that?
The facilities committee came in goal too. I don't recall, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall the facilities committee being part of our conversations.
We just talked about facilities being issues.
Yeah, facilities in general. But the facilities committee was in.
The job is to make some recommendations and
Are you asking if did you how that would operate, who would make up the committee, that type of thing?
Yes.
Or it's the committees have given you thought of how that would actually happen? Or look like?
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the areas we didn't get far enough into to say how exactly are we going to identify this committee, at what point are they going to make recommendations, how involved are they going to be. We just agreed that it was important to get stakeholders' input into that process.
It seems to me that they might be a good addition to have a tactic for the plans to move forward on their own maybe.
I agree. Otherwise it could- Richard had one.
Yeah, I had a question about demographic studies, because that's obviously been a big issue around the North Shore here with our neighbors in Lake Forest. We had a tough time planning for building schools that they didn't need, and what are we doing about demographic studies?
Oh, yeah, well, it was, yeah, we had one conducted almost 2 years ago, in February, I think. And we used a different firm than we'd used the last time. I won't comment on my opinion of demographic study, but do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I would say we do the best we can with demographics. One of our biggest predictors is our size of our kindergarten class, because in our area, families will move before kids start school. And it's a number that we keep, a number that you'll see in the dashboard. But our demographic study is so recent that I think we just have to look at the predictions, which, again, in my opinion, are not as aligned as I would have liked them to see.
So when I think about the facilities question, to me seems like sort of the elephant in the room. It's, what kind of school environment are we trying to create here, and what kind of resources do we want to put behind it? Is addressed somewhat in 3F, develop a long-term comprehensive prioritized plan to guide spending. I mean, that's a huge goal in and of itself, right? But because it encompasses the CapEx, it encompasses resource, it encompasses the one-on-one laptop initiative. So I guess I'm thinking that we need to really come up with a very strong plan supported by the board and everyone really in this room as to how we're going to move that forward.
I agree, because facilities, it has everything really that we do is in that goal, because how do we achieve, how do we achieve education, providing the services that we need to provide, in addition to providing the space and the adequate space and the growth for the future, and what is education going to look like in the future, and how are our facilities going to address that? I mean, it's like everything is wrapped up right there.
It seems to me like the facilities committee is a great idea for dealing kind of with ongoing stuff. But with the question of what to do with the feedback that we get from the LDD, it seems to me like we ought to have a consultant or an architect come back to us with 2 or 3 options of what they suggest. Based on this data, here are 2 or 3 different ways you can respond. You can do your basic maintenance, versus you can do some kind of addition or some kind of remodeling, versus you can do this other bigger product. Come back to us with some recommendations like that. And I suspect that everything else is I think it's going to line up in a common sense way when we have that, in terms of how the financing and what our goals are for the buildings. I'm concerned if we talk about kicking this over to a committee, because I'd love to have feedback on our ultimate plan, but I think if we kick it to a committee right now, they're going to say, well, we don't have the information, and we don't have the direction about the basic direction that the district wants to go in. And I just feel like that'll hold it up forever.
I would share that the board is a big job ahead of them as far as what's next with the adequacy report and the BLDD. And from that point, based upon where the board decides to go, I would say that we would probably be working as a board on what we're going to be doing, but then we may have a facilities committee just to provide feedback. So that's what a lot of districts do. So
I agree, and also the one caveat here would be a perception issue. Because any architectural firm will come in and do whatever we want them to do. But we do need to give them some direction and some guideline, because if they come in and say, yeah, you need to build a new choral space, so the space you have is inadequate. Well, there's a perception issue. Yeah, they want to build, they want to do that. You know, so we have to give them guideline and say, okay, we might want to look at doing this, but we also, can we do this? And it's their job to tell us, yes, you can or you can't, or you can do them all. It's just a matter of how much each costs. So you're correct. It's just a matter of how we do. We can't just say, you know, give them wide open berth. We've got to give them some parameters or some direction.
I guess what I have in mind is we would give them a request for, 2 or 3 different options. Give me a Cadillac, give me a Ford Fiesta, somewhere in between. And then we can go back at it and say what's realistic for the district and what is in keeping with what we want our facilities to be.
That's exactly right. That's perfect. And then they can also even give you better detail on that and give you like a menu of options. So you can pick, okay, yes, we want to do that. No, we don't want to do that. So we can kind of stay within whatever our defined parameters are.
I don't disagree, but I'd just like to finish up by saying, from my perspective, the driving force behind that has to be the staff and administration. We're not in the school every day. They are. They understand the teaching environment. They have to convince us of what they would like to see and what's required, and then we can determine whether that meets our financial requirements. But I think the driving force has to come from them.
We'll be having some major discussions on that.
That pulls into the new programs, justifying it and saying what our final outcomes and goals are. Welcome to Board Goal 4. I already pushed the slide ahead, but we're going to do one quick item like we do in school. If everyone could just stand up for a minute. Rain break. You can keep your feet just solid, but I need you to do 15 jumping jacks with your feet on the ground like this. 15. All right, then I want you to put your right hand in and put your right hand out. And put your right hand in and shake it. All right, then sit down. One of the things our kids are learning is that when we sit for a long period of time, our brain starts lighting up, and therefore the learning and the retention doesn't stay there. So, Board Goal 4, I'd like to introduce you to 2 of our very, very, very valued Board Goal 4 members, Kathy O'Hara, who is from our village and also is working with us on some of these goals through the village standpoint, and Joe Cook, who is our communications consultant in the school district and helps get out all of the really fantastic press releases that we do. So, Board Goal 4A, and I'm gonna be like Kevin, I'm gonna get through here so you guys can answer questions. We need to develop and support strategies that foster open communication for internal and external stakeholders. So this is within the school district and outside of the school district. One of the things that we've started this year, and I need to give credit to Kevin Rubenstein, he does board briefs for the board after every regular board meeting. And so our execution metric is the actual board brief. We started that this year. A consolidated newsletter with the village, the park district, and the library, possibly, and us. 3 times per year, we're going to be starting. We're hoping to get something out maybe in December or January. Notice that we would be ahead because we put in our plan 14-15 for starting. But with all of us sending newsletters, we thought, wouldn't it be great if we just combined our forces and sent them out together? Because then we think everybody would be reading them, because they'd all be in one spot. What happens when the mouse doesn't work? Hold on, let me do this one. Oh, here's one. Hold local seminars and tours for realtor groups and local preschools. One of the things that we did in Palatine when we had Baldrige metrics for pretty much everything is we had 2 meetings a year. We called it the District Advisory Committee for Excellence.
And our realtors and our community leaders came in, and we talked to them about all the great things going on in the school district and issues that were on the horizon. So we could actually keep track here of the number of tours that we hold for new families, because both of our principals do that. And then we can keep track of the meetings we have and the attendance that we get at those. Oops. Of course, I'm the only one that's having problems with this. I'm going to ask you to help me with that. My resident expert. Should I just do it up there? All right. See, it's still not going. I'm going to have you click it once you get it.
I guess that's technology on its full start.
Needs to start with me. I will share, though, one of the items when we were talking about return on investment that I did want to share. The return on the investment is really impacts all of us, and that's all about student learning, preparation for college and career, as well as student social emotional feelings about themselves and about school. It's about having a school district that's a viable partner and participant in the community, as well as a school district that attracts people that want to come here. So the return on the investment for all of us here, whether we're staff members or parents, community members, is vital, because we're all here for our students and for their social emotional well-being, and to see them as they succeed in their college and career. So 4B, regularly collect and report stakeholder feedback. One of the things that we're doing this year is superintendent's corner meetings on the topic of the day. This morning was on student achievement. We're doing a repeat of that tomorrow evening at 6:30. Next year will be, every other month will be a principal advisory. So there'll be a superintendent corner, and then the next month maybe the elementary school principal will have an advisory, then we'll have another superintendent corner. And what we're really trying to do is be accessible and talk about topics and get feedback from our parents. So our metric for that will be agendas of topics that we cover. Add opportunities to ask questions on the new parent page on our website. We have started on that already, so new parents have a forum to ask us questions. Jill Cook, our communications consultant, kind of feeds those to the different people involved so we can answer those parents as on a one-to-one, which has been really nice. Next. We do know that eventually, hopefully, the 5 essentials from the state will be a valid and reliable test. But in the meantime, we've agreed that parents are surveyed out, but we need to hear from them. So one of the things we can do is do focus groups, obviously. But the other is we can actually kind of design a parent survey. And the best place to get our parents is at registration. So as we register in May, we can actually have a survey saying, how did the year go? You know, what input do you have for us for next year, etc. So that we would start by 16, 17, hopefully having the 5 essentials data also for us. We will have different survey questions on the homepage of our website starting in January. So we may ask questions and get feedback from all of you on a variety of different topics. So that will be starting in January. You'll hear more about that in Constant Contact. Participate in a tri-board survey of the community. So not only will we be working in having the newsletter from all 3 of us, but eventually we could work on a survey that would encompass all 3 of our organizations. And our execution metric would be to aim for higher participation than the state survey participation. However, the state survey participation was not valid or reliable from last year, so we're back to no metric for that. But by 16, 17, that will all be worked out. We talked about this one, so you can flip to the next one. Provide relevant, targeted, and transparent information to the community. Next. One of the ways we communicate with parents in a timely fashion is our Alert Now. The name of that program is changing, by the way, to Blackboard, but a good execution metric is the number of messages that we send. And there are actually charts in Alert Now where we can show you the months that we send the most Alert Nows out. Next. Continue the e-newsletter for parents and interested community members. We have both of our principals are sending monthly newsletters this year. Our teachers are sending weekly newsletters. I send a monthly newsletter, and we'll be expanding on that, but those are our metrics for that. We will continue press releases, and it's been an interesting experience for me to see what our different local coverage is on different topics. Some stories that I think are really exciting, they don't call me, but then we might send them something we think isn't going to go anywhere, and they want me to call them right away. So we will continue to work on our press releases. Identify levels of interest for external stakeholders. It's important for us to look at the community and determine what the community wants to hear about. Sometimes they don't want to hear about all the little things going on, but they certainly want to hear about how our students are achieving and the financial impact to them in the community and the really proud things that we stand for here in the school district. So those are things that we'll be working on in our communications plan. Make use of social media and available technologies. We're going to be doing a report on that this year. I will share that Kevin Rubenstein now has how many followers on Twitter, Kevin? 400? 4 or 5. I'm in a contest with Nate through the end of the school year. Nate, how many do you have? 142, and I'm still under 100. So I'm working on that social media, and we will continue to explore other opportunities for social media, not in exclusion, but in addition to, because we realize that all of our parents communicate in different ways. Through print media, social media, and our websites facilitate access to board meeting dates. We've been very good about either having them taped at Village Hall, or tonight this meeting is being taped and will be posted on our websites. One of the execution metrics we will begin taking is the number of community members that attend board meetings, and then we're doing a little bit of research to see if we can figure out how many people are accessing the community meetings when they're live, because we believe we can collect that data.
You can collect also views on video.
Right, that's what we're looking for. We want to continue working with community organizations. Charmed is just one. We have LEAD, Croya, and many, many more. Our execution metric is improved community dialogue is surveyed by the community. So again, that might be a survey that we administer, or it might be combined with the village and the park district again. We need to foster our collaborative relationships to reinforce that sense of community and enhance our student learning. We want to continue our great program, Read With Me. Lots of pictures. You're going to be hearing a lot more about that. The press release is going out. Our execution metric will be student reflection results, because our students actually write about their wonderful program for that. We are going to be holding community coffees. That's something that we're still working with the village and the park district on what that would look like, but it'll be our 3 entities working together and having coffee and having people in the community able to come and talk to us as a group. Initiate a senior volunteer program. Our execution metric would be number of volunteers and the number of events. We've pushed that one out because there's a lot of things that we need to get together before we start that. Learning opportunities beyond the classroom. This is such a wonderful community, and we have so many people that really want to help us out and share with us. So one of the things we talked about is having a career day and bringing that back. That would be at the middle school. And then part 2 of that is actually having a plan for progression. So they'd start in early childhood through middle school and really talk about careers. So we've got that progression to an actual career day. Continue our Project Citizen. We can monitor the number of students who actually complete a group report. And then part 2 of that is any public policies that might have been changed due to Project Citizen. We thought it would be a really cool thing to institute a government day in the community and involve members of our local government as well as our police and our fire department. And our execution metric for that, hold up, okay. Increase student awareness in local government either by a reflection, presentations to the board, etc. All right. We really want to maximize effective communication and collaboration with Lake Forest, both their school districts. And we're really starting to make some progress on that. And I think, again, getting together with our calendars and getting dates on the calendar prior to a school year is critical. I will share from a personal note with Mike. He always talks about our kids, not your kids, and that goes a long way with me because our kids are his kids also. So we're really working on that. We need better cooperation from everybody with emergency messaging. Anytime there's an emergency in the community, we need to have a set plan for that, and that's something we're all working on. We have tri-district meetings where we have both Lake Forest school districts and us participate in a tri-district meeting, and in the past, and I wasn't here in the past, I've only been here for one, feedback has been that our teachers haven't gained a whole great deal from those. And so we really need to tie that in with our big professional development plan and have them days that are just awesome that our staff can collaborate with Lake Forest teachers. Maximize the communication between home and school. This is the last thing. We do have to review our use of PowerSchool as our student management system. What may be happening is we're not using all the things that it's capable of doing, and then if that's the case, then we have to learn how to do them. For instance, and I've shared this across the board because we had several teacher placement letters go out without postage at the elementary school this year. As a parent, if everyone else was getting the teacher placement letters and my child was not, I would be very sad for my child. So one of the things that I think Kevin brought up, or Nate, is why don't we just make use of our parent portal so that all the parents can go in at a certain time and get their teacher placement. I'm thinking, hello, that's what we should all be doing. So we really have to either make the best use of PowerSchool or change systems, and that way parents can update their own. You know, when your email changes, you don't have to call the district office to do it. We have to make things more user-friendly and allow our secretaries time to work on projects and not change people's emails that parents can do them on their own. It's pretty easy. Okay.
Comments from my group 4. Questions?
I hate to pick on these, but this one's has a personal effect. I mean, I don't see why we need to wait until 2017-18 to initiate senior volunteer programs. You know, when the golf season ends, there's a lot to seniors out there. I have, you know, I've been for more than a year going up to Waukegan, and it's just a tremendous joy for me to go out there and work with. I work with 10 and 4th graders, and I think you can get a ton of people to do that. Not only rewarding for us, but it's great to be in the classroom with kids. So I wouldn't wait until 2017.
Do you want to mention when it is getting started, which is John, to answer your question, one of the things that we are doing as a tri-boards, which is the village, the park district, and is looking at setting up a mutual volunteer program. And we do have a community member that is spearheading, looking into that, and hopefully to get that started within this next year. Okay, so that was a, though you're saying it's long-term, I think really all three districts, we have use of volunteers, whether it's on the village's advisory boards, whether it's helping the park district, or whether it's, helping in the schools or other things. We realize that, and all three districts are working really to try to, how we can develop a very robust volunteer system that would fit all the needs of Lake Bluff.
I think I would share also, I'm a major advocate. When I was a principal, we had senior volunteers in all of our schools, and I had the most, I think I had 14. To me, it's more of a systemic approach having it done by this time, because there's a lot involved. You have to background check, you have to interview to find out where their interests are. So I had seniors that loved to work in the lunchroom. I had seniors that loved to work in the library. I had seniors that wanted to work with kids. And my absolute favorite was Pat, and he owned the Xerox machine. So, and they were integral parts of our building, and really taught the kids a lot about the difference in generations. They provided they were grandparents on Grandparents' Day for those that didn't have them. But we have to do it the right way, because our teachers and our staff are so, I'm going to use the word overwork right now. There's so much going on that I want them to be able to see the joy and the benefit of adding seniors to the buildings. So there's no reason we can't start it earlier, but I would say full implementation by that year.
Becoming a member of the school board was to involve people who no longer have children in the school. It doesn't mean we aren't actively involved with children. We have grandchildren, we have our own children. And this is a way to get back involved and to kind of be reinvigorated. So I think it's very, very important.
I just have an observation about one of the common themes we keep hearing, frustration from the people who put this together, the Gene and us, is with data. And it all seems to track back to the state and our reliance on state data. They're changing the ISATs. We're going to get a park. We don't know what that's going to look like. The 5 essential survey, is it usable? Is it not usable? And that's what we know now. And what do we know? What we don't know is going to be a year from now, 18 months from now. What are they going to change? What are they going to drop? What are they going to add? So I would encourage us to, I don't know how we do this, but to think outside the box and become less dependent on state data to achieve the excellent goals, measure our excellence. Because the state's proved time again to be unreliable, and it's not going to change. The idea of all the surveys you're talking about, I think is wonderful in doing that in-house. I would just caution you, being married to a survey professional, that you take advantage of some people in the community who really know a lot about doing surveys, and there's a whole science behind that makes sure you do it the right way. But anything we can do to become less reliant on the state, I think would be very wise.
I'm just going to conclude with a couple items today. As we went through these action items and plans, we were all really excited because this district has done a lot of things in the past few years. And we are a high achieving district aiming for even higher. I do want to make a couple comments that I made in the superintendent corner this morning to clear up any fallacies. We are aligning everything to Common Core, but Common Core is our baseline because we actually have higher goals than just Common Core for our kids. And one of the main things that we all heard from the board as we went through strategic planning and that we heard from the community is moving towards more individualized instructional plans. So that if I have a child that maybe has special needs, I know he or she is covered in an IEP. If I have a child maybe that's average but outstanding in language arts, that my child has a plan for challenging in the language arts, but then moving that child to an exceeds area in the other areas that he may not be doing as well in. And I will share that as we really are starting to get into MAP, and I know we've had it here for a long time, but our teachers are learning more and more about it and are able to use it. We really are moving to a more use of MAP for improvement of instruction, and I think that's important to know. I would also share with you that, and I'm going to get the book, and I'm going to do a little blurb in my constant contact. We had a national speaker talking last week at the State Superintendent Conference about the number of initiatives that have been put on schools since the 1950s. And they started out, they had the little homemaker, and they had obviously reading and math, and then they had home ec and industrial ed and agriculture, and then the years started speeding up and they just kept throwing more and more things, consumer education, technology, and they had all the initiatives that are going on now, and then they stopped and said, but we're still in the same time frame for a school day. And so what I shared with parents is, I believe that the community was very loud and clear that we want high-achieving students in a very balanced environment. We want the fine arts. We want our kids well and feeling social, emotionally well. And we want it all done in a fiscally responsible way. And those are all fair things to ask for. I do think this plan is going to get there. And I will share with you as a board, you're going to see as the reports start coming in, that's where we're really going to be able to say, okay, now we have baseline, what's reasonable to set the goal. It's been frustrating for me and for Kevin, because we've both been in districts where it's been easy to set those benchmarks and those goals, and everything is just changing. So I also want to share with all of you, thank you for everyone for coming. It's a rainy, early fall night, and we had great participation on our August 7th evening. I want to commend all of you for taking your August 7th and for coming again tonight. And I want to commend the board for going through the strategic planning process. We will be bringing this back for some other tweaks because they will need to adopt this then. And our first reports are already being planned for January. So, question?
Hi, my name is David Burns. I live at 530 East North Avenue. My name is David Burns. First, as a parent, I want to thank the group here. It's great to see so much effort and commitment be put into the future of our schools. I think it's great. I did just have a couple kind of comments, suggestions, maybe questions too. As this is a strategic plan, I assume that the intent is to get our school to a higher level, to ratchet us up. And one thing I noticed is that there seems to be kind of a mix of maintenance or operational elements to it, which would keep us kind of at status quo, and then there's a whole lot of really, really good stuff that would take us to the next level. And from a parent's perspective, as you guys talked about, this is the Cliff Notes, there's still a lot of information and a lot of activities. It would be kind of nice to see those broken down, to say, here's the operational plan that we need to do just to survive and to keep going just like we are, and here are the incremental growth-oriented activities. So that's one thing. And then the other, excuse me, as a strategic plan, I would hope that we would have really great tactics, really good prioritized to say what are the high impact ones, so that with limited resources, our overworked staff, overworked teachers, we could say, here are the things that we really need to focus on and make sure we get done because these are going to have the highest impact. And furthermore, if you could address or identify which of those are going to be the least effort, that's your low-hanging fruit. Get those done and maybe double down on them. With limited resources, maybe you just have to say, these are the ones that we're going to do, these other ones fall at the bottom. But right now, it's just a huge list. Great stuff. But it's hard to wade through as a parent and say, I know we're going to hit these. These are really going to make the difference, and I can see how they're going to tie back. Right now, it's just a big laundry list of really good stuff, but I question with limited resources how we're going to get it all done. And without prioritization, I can see a lot of these just falling off, and it might be the wrong ones. So, just my 2 cents.
I would share that these are prioritized based upon the feedback from the groups. They're prioritized based on their timelines. So when we went through, we really went through and said, we looked at legal timelines, but then we also prioritize based on the feedback on August 7th when we worked. And this is just the phase 3 plan, and what we will do then as administrators and working with staff, we will actually sit down and have different responsibilities for different groups. I'm looking at this young lady right here, Catherine. She actually runs a Rising Star team at her school. So, which is a plan that the board is going to have to adopt. It's the school improvement plans now for the district. And so her team, Nate sits on your team, doesn't he? He sits on the team, he doesn't run the team, he doesn't facilitate the team, he's there as just a participant. So we have many teams throughout the district. This is the plan, now we get ready to deploy it, and each of the teams will have to determine what's the best course to do that. So strategic planning in schools, this is not the way that I've done strategic planning in the past. We followed ECRA in doing it. We've learned some lessons along the way. But I will tell you, from a small district standpoint, their help in providing data and giving us suggestions and doing, for instance, our dashboard is going to be invaluable. We asked them for 5 different pieces of data, which normally one of us would have spent some time trying to get. We got the reports already today. And those are things that the board wants. They want to know, how are we doing? So, good points. Anything else? Comments? Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you to adjourn the meeting. I want to thank everybody again. Drive safe.
Thank you again for all your participation and all your hard work. We really appreciate everything you've contributed to this whole process. And just thanks again. May I have a motion to adjourn at 8:30? So move second. All in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.